The Colchester and Ipswich art societies face each other across a common border, the River Stour. From Sudbury in the west to Felixstowe and Harwich in the east, the River Stour flows not only through the landscape but also through art history.
It's really a breathing space. I used to work here for a long time, and before a shift I'd come and just breathe in the fresh morning or just enjoy the early evening. And in fact I have made several paintings from here, just trying to get that feeling of calm and peace that it gave me. So there's quite a few, they're really just scribbles, but just reminders of a curve or a cloud, a field, bends in the river, that sort of thing. So very scribbly. A whole painting came out of this one actually, with really turbulent skies, not like today. So that's the sort of thing. Really just to remind me of that moment that I've seen something I really want to think about a bit more and use in a painting. It's an experience. It's a startled moment, it's a glimpse, it's a sudden intake of breath. It's that I want to take back. The fact that it's beautiful can be, or the fact that Constable painted it can be inhibiting, but his love of the place, I think, really shines through, and getting to know somewhere really well is interesting. In fact, I'm starting a project on a farm, which I don't know at all, and you can't speed up that getting to know a place. You just have to keep going there, keep doing it.
I think what I love about Flatford, although it's not like it today with the river so high as it is, but it's got a timeless quality about it. I grew up in the villages around here. I went to school in East Bergholt. It's got lots of memories for me, and now I come here with my own children, and it's sort of replaying my childhood for my children as I experienced it. But also I love the connection with knowing that artists have worked here and I'm walking in their footsteps. I want to capture this moment, not just this landscape. The light today is so different and it's constantly changing, and it's about capturing that moment and capturing that feel in the same way as you capture a person's personality or character in their portrait. You're capturing the character of the landscape.
Over the years, the valley has been home to many artists. It is our border, but one that unites rather than divides. The invitation to members of the art societies was to consider and respond to this mutual border, its landscape and meaning, and by implication, borders more generally. What they are for, why we feel the need for them, what they divide, and what they mean psychologically.
Well, I'm mainly a landscape painter, and I did intend to go to Harwich or the Docks because I like the mixture of rural and industrial elements in the landscape. That's my usual thing. But then all those plans went on hold because of lockdown, and so I couldn't go anywhere. And so I started to think about what I could paint, and I came on the idea of just painting the view from my window, partly because it was something that I was able to do and something I'd never done before, and partly because it seemed that this had become my new border. We were not allowed to leave the house apart from a bit of exercise, so my horizons had shrunk really to my street and the immediate area, and it felt as though the border was literally the front gate and hedge of my house. The other thing was that it was an interesting subject all of a sudden, which it hadn't been for years that I'd lived here, never thought of painting the view down into the street from my front bedroom. But it had changed because of lockdown. There was no traffic. There were people jogging past, cycling past, walking. I got to see the same people going past at the same time of day each day. There were people standing in the street at a distance from their friends having these conversations. And because there's no traffic, the air was very, very clear. So that was the other big change. And I thought, if I paint this now, it'll be a record of something that is not going to last all that long.
Over 150 members responded to the invitation to exhibit, and through painting, print, sculpture and textile, the exhibitions at Firstsite, Colchester and then Ipswich Art Gallery reflected the lure of the river as a subject. Where possible, the exhibitions were hung geographically, grouping together works from similar geographic coordinates and mirroring the flow of the river. As you take the trip downstream, you will encounter expressions of the river and the landscape and the life that surrounds it, punctuated by wider responses to the meaning of borders. It is a trip that celebrates the creativity that thrives within the Colchester and Ipswich art societies, the joy of making, and the enjoyment and well-being we take from experiencing the world through art. It has always been our intention for the project to be a collaboration, to encourage conversations between artists across the Essex-Suffolk border, and to explore our place rooted in this landscape.
When we were looking for houses to live in, we looked at Manningtree one day. We came out from London. Manningtree wasn't possible. It wasn't a good option there. And we thought, what should we do for the rest of the day? We've got a day. So we just hopped on the bus. And as we came through the countryside, we kept catching glimpses of this amazing water. And we were talking to one another saying, what is it? What is it? And somebody chirped up on the bus saying, it's the Stour. So we ended up in Harwich and thought, well, this is fantastic. We've got just what we want. We want to live by the seaside. We've got very cheap houses and a range of interests, industry, marshes, woodlands. And then when we bought this house, I couldn't believe it. And I walked in this room and there was this fantastic view with the Stour running right across it. And it became very, very important. Yes, I knew about the history of Constable and the Stour. When I lived in London, I was always going off to the galleries, particularly the Tate as it was then. And there was one gallery, long gallery, and right at the end, which was always headed for it, was this little painting of a place called Harwich. And it was that beautiful one of the Low Lighthouse, which in his day, about 1820, was just a wooden shack with a sort of lamp hanging in it. And I thought, God, that's a really interesting place. This is well before I'd actually been here. We're talking about 10 years before we actually came here. And then lo and behold, when we came here, there was the Low Lighthouse, but rebuilt, of course, in the Georgian period. And but I've never forgotten that painting and the way it held a little light to this place before I even ever came here. Being a studio painter, I'm concentrating really on the materials and the canvas and the paints, but I couldn't do without the local scene. So it's a case of looking from my window here, looking at the ships in the distance, and then going out and walking around the town, cycling around the town and seeing the ships much closer and getting a different perspective. The thing I really like about them is just the colours, the crazy colours, the shapes, and they're a gift to a painter. They just spark the imagination, the combinations of colours and the positioning of shapes and colours and mixed with the weather and the atmosphere.